Speaker's Corner is not about the speakers on their own. It's about an interaction between a constantly changing audience, which is coming from all over the world, from every social class, every religious and political analysis, every psychological type, every type of human being we have here. And because of that, you have a dynamic interrelationship between speakers, the audience, the regulars, and the transient people who are coming in and out, and the tourists.
Are you a homosexual? The Bible says you gotta repent. That's wrong.
I'm a black man.
That's right.
That's what I am.
Yes, sir.
Women are fundamentally sadomasochistic.
Since it's not God, since it's not revelation, what is it?
When you are sex with a white woman, you are sex with a sheep. Yeah.
The point that I want to make is that essentially the capitalist system is a hypocrisy.
Speak. This is Speaker's Corner, not Listener's Corner. The black man with his 15-inch thing dangling.
And of course my sister said, oh, so is he gay? And suddenly my mum had to face up to the inevitable.
Global capitalism is falling apart at the seams.
Can you go away for once?
No.
You've got nothing better to do with your life on a
No.
Sunday.
So why don't they?
Speaker's Corner, you have that whole breadth of humanity.
It allows those people who are sometimes excluded from the democratic process to actually have a voice in society.
Speaker's Corner is a veritable babble of tongues.
Speaker's Corner is a symbol, and symbols are important.
A lot of things that are said here are things that we feel and we think and we dare not say.
The whole environment of the place alters the way people think and interrelates with one another.
You can have all these people with all these different opinions, and yet there's not much trouble.
We see a tiny slice of contemporary society trying to produce society.
Speaker's Corner always has been a microcosm of what goes on in the rest of the United Kingdom.
People seek to come to Speaker's Corner and gather there and communicate with one another, to seek explanations which are lacking in the official sources. Tourists come to Speaker's Corner. When they come to Speaker's Corner, they encounter all sorts of speakers. Ali here, Nation of Islam there, alien sexual invader over there, Quaker lunatic over there, and so on and so forth. And as a consequence of this, they hang around at Speaker's Corner for hours on end. It is the single best known place for free speech on the planet. And for that reason, attracts a significant amount of attention from people when they come to London.
The corner originated, as far as my opinion is concerned, from social protests in the 19th century. When the workers began to gather and protest from the Chartist movement onwards, they did so in Hyde Park, and Hyde Park was chosen for that, in particular, I think 1855, because it was where the ruling elite used to go and parade off with their, posh horses and carts and carriages and so on. So it was a place where the plebs or the proletarians of London would gather to attack the ruling upper classes.
Have-nots have always have-not, because they've been oppressed. And the oppressors, the people who are oppressed, cry out against the oppressors today.
An Act of Parliament from the 1800s that this place here, Speaker's Corner, is actually set aside for people to come and air their grievances, have their demonstrations. So traditionally now, over a number of years, Speaker's Corner has been the place for people to come and express their views, whatever they might be.
I think we should be proud of Speaker's Corner. I don't think it's legally that interesting. It's a piece of park regulation. But in terms of the kind of cultural history of the country, it is interesting. It grew out of the great 19th century conflict to extend the franchise. It grew out of political movements which were pressing for freedom of speech and freedom of assembly. And it's, we, I think, rightly regard that as one of the contributions the UK has made to the growth of democracy.
We have freedom of speech. I'm asking, how can we have freedom of speech when we are actually limited by what it is we can speak about? Hyde Park Corner was designed about freedom of speech. People marched here to actualize the function of freedom of speech. Now, what have we achieved? That we can actually come here and only speak about certain things, only speak about what is permitted to be spoken of. I call to all of you people to come up here, speak. This is Speaker's Corner, not Listener's Corner. Speak to us, tell us what it is you think about. Tell us how it is you see your world, you see your reality.
The Speaker's Corner itself was established after the Reform League riots of 1866, 1867, around, trying to get the right to vote for working men.
The Act was passed in 1872 in response to a specific public order problem, in essence, where the Reform League had held a series of large demonstrations. They were saying they had a legal right to assemble and make speeches and political rallies in the royal parks. The Park Act was passed to provide a framework for regulating the use of the park.
It's been documented that in 1872 an act was passed which officially designated a place within Hyde Park for public speaking. But to look at the origins of speaking, to start with 1872 doesn't really take account that public speaking had been going on in Hyde Park for the hundreds of years.
From the history as I understand it, it was a very unique spot, both historically and in terms of how individuals were always given an opportunity to speak their minds, no matter what the subject matter, no matter what the day, no matter how important, no matter how trivial. And that was a certain space that was created to ensure that all points of view would be heard, and that the rights of individuals to express themselves would be completely protected in this one spot.
Because Hyde Park, or the perimeter of Hyde Park, going on to what's now known as Marble Arch, you had there the location of the most famous place of public execution in England, which was known as Tyburn Hanging Tree.
I don't think there is any real trace connection between those events, the hangings, and the Speaker's Corner itself. I don't think there is, but I mean, I'm open to persuasion. I'm not fixed on this.
Now, who are we? Who is the Nation of Islam? What do this group of black people represent today? I know a lot of you out there, the only view you get of the nation is via your print and electronic media.
That's right.
You hear things that the Nation of Islam are racist. You hear things like the Nation of Islam are bigots.
That's right.
You hear things like the Nation of Islam are anti-Semites. But we are here today before you to tell you that we are none of these things. We are none of these things. Allow us to introduce ourselves. allow us to let you know who we are.
Go ahead.
You can't tell us who we are.
That's right. Exactly.
We have to be able to tell you who we are. We have a human right to express our hurt and our pain coming up from 400 years of slavery.
That's right.
It is my human right to speak on the issues which face my community.
That's right, brother.
It is my human right to speak on behalf of my sister, Joy Gardner,
Yes, sir.
who was murdered by your customs officers.
Have you forgotten?
You called her an illegal immigrant. But where is the evidence?
Whether or not you allow individuals to express points of view, no matter how difficult, no matter how odious, no matter how marginal, that's a true test of a democracy. It's not just expressing viewpoints with which the government might agree or might like or might welcome. It's most important to see whether or not the government will allow the expression of beliefs and viewpoints and thoughts that absolutely are at odds with the government.
We said no to the war, yo. We said no to the war, yo. We said no to the war because you're killing the innocent, killing the poor, yo. I said no to the war, yo. I said no to the war, yo. I said no to the war because it's against international law.
But it's not just a place, it's an ordinary place. It's a corner. It's not spectacular, it's not beautiful, it's not grand. It didn't cost $1 billion to build, like a pyramid or the Arc de Triomphe in Paris. It's a corner. It's an everyday corner of a park. And it got its value because of what people came to do there and what they insisted on there.
If you read your history, you will find that Hitler was democratically elected. Hitler was democratically, according to the democratic process of Germany, Hitler was put into power and made supreme dictator according to the democratic process. Now, if you believe in democracy and you believe it, you must say that Hitler and what the German people did was okay.
Speaker's Corner occupies a very important role in British society, in the broader understanding around what free speech is and what democracy is. It is a place where we have carved out a certain zone where all speech is protected and all speakers have a certain right to express themselves.
Visitors from overseas, they come and they say how marvellous this place is.
People do come from all over the world to see Speaker's Corner and to participate. And again, it is one of those very few places in the world where people can speak freely to complete strangers.
Israel, I don't know, I don't familiar with this kind of place where people in same hour, same place, and they come and give their opinion in such a public way. You have to get license from the police to arrange so many people in a small place. So.
We haven't got the tradition at home where you go to a place and just speak your mind.
It is entertainment because most of them very successfully offend most people that come here, I think.
Because you don't have to be a politician to speak or something, so it sort of like gives the common people, let them speak and have their feelings, bring it out.
And this is the most unique place for that to happen in the world. They've tried it in Germany, they've tried it in Italy, and they've failed. For whatever reason they've failed. But we maintain this here as a place of free speech where anybody can come along. So,
Nigger! 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 You see, a black can say nigger, white man can say nigger. If a white man say nigger, it's racist.
The Russians have always been the maximum enemy of the Americans. And instead of killing them, just killing them, which would be bad for international opinion, they are killing them slowly by opening up new McDonald's restaurants all over Russia. That's what they're doing.
That's the way to do it.
America is finished. America is the Babylon in Revelation chapter 18. It's finished, whether they believe it or not.
And I grew up learning about Cinderella and Prince Charming. I grew up watching soap operas with stories of boy meets girl. I grew up not knowing what the word gay meant, and I grew up fancying people of my own gender.
That's the Muslim way. The Muslim kill the homosexual. The Muslim kill the murderer. The Muslim kill.
We allow anybody to stand up and say anything they want, which other cultures would not allow.
But it's done in a place and in a way where some of the normal rules are suspended.
Your static conception of the question would just say people go there and talk to it. Some people speak, people listen. But actually the dynamic relationship is much, much more complex than that.
I think it provides an outlet for people who otherwise wouldn't get heard normally.
And for some people who want to hear things as well. Because some people need to hear things and they also come here for that. You know, they want to express themselves and they want to hear what other people have to say.
It's a very special public place. It has to be made to work, has to be made to live by what people do when they come into that space. And it's interesting just to see how they manage that. How do they manage to talk, communicate with others, debate about issues in a certain fashion.
And I believe that a man who is dissolute in his private life can never be a leader in justice in his public life.
Leaders are dissolute in their private lives.
No,
Look at our kings.
No, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I will accept your diatribes against the wickedness of the human race.
Well, yes.
But I'm not prepared to say that men are more wicked than women. I think, in fact, it might be said.
But who become leaders, when they become leaders, they become dissolute.
Yes, all right. Well, now.
How is it that the dynamics of the relation between the speaker and the audience is worked into being?
The essence of capitalism is the essence of selfishness backed up by the utility of violence.
And yet USA is probably the most
all right,
church-going
I will
nation
spend a moment condemning America.
Well, they go to church.
It will give you some pleasure, and it gives me an opportunity of making my own mind quite clear. I believe that a capitalist society like America is committed to a way of life which is selfish in the extreme, violent in the nature of it, and contemptuous of the well-being of other people in its inner course.
But a lot of them are really sincere Christians.
Look, can I ask you to stop condemning the capitalists?
Well,
leave it to me.
But they're Christians.
They are not Christians.
The point I'm making is that there are a lot of very good Christians
now, I think
America.
a number of you have grown up long enough.
Why don't they reject it?
Yes, don't blow your top. You made your point. And the point is this, that a great many Christians are hypocrites.
People set up their stands, their soapboxes, their ladders, and then people congregate around. You have to attract people.
All right, go ahead. That's a good way of getting it. Go ahead. Very good.
How the particular speakers manage to attract those audiences, how they work the audiences, how they get their particular rhetorical messages across.
Hey, get them cameras out of here. No, I'm just kidding. Mohammed is not the way. Mohammed never said he was the way to heaven. Look at the Islamic religion today. All over the Middle East, they can't even get along with themselves. The top 10 terrorists wanted by the United Nations, Muslims. Now, I'm not here to cut down the Muslims. Goodness gracious, I'm here to cut them all down. Now, when we look at the Islamic religion, there are good Muslims and there are bad Muslims. So I'm not addressing the good Muslims today. But when you begin to say you can kill in the name of Allah, and you begin to tell people, hey, you can have 4 wives, men, but the women can only have 1 husband and share him with 3 other women. How many of you women would like to share a husband with 3 other women?
And how many women would like to share with mistresses?
But if a heckler starts up, a naive heckler, a tourist who gets agitated by the speaker's message and decides, I want to intervene, and then they make a comment, then very quickly that certain national identities or cultural identities can be invoked by the speaker immediately to dismiss or reduce the heckler in terms of the argument being put forward.
Excuse me, sir, are you a homosexual?
No, a man can have one wife and three mistresses.
Excuse me, sir. I agree on your moral point.
Yes.
I agree.
Yes.
We're not talking about mistresses. Mohammed said you can have 4 wives.
Muhammad said they don't have mistress, marry the girls. Can have 4 wives, but don't have mistress.
America! Take your Bible and piss off home. Go home, Yankee. Go home, Russians. Go home, Yankee.
Somebody give him a beer.
This is not something you have to interest people in, like a Jackson Pollock picture. This is something for which there is some sort of natural thirst.
I don't care about football. I care about love, romance, sex, and vegetarianism. These are my interests in life, and I like myself, and I like what I signify. I wished I was a girl in the audience that could see me, because I would be my type. And I would chat me up. I would take me home. I would undress me and do all the kind of things that you homosexuals would like to do with me. Sorry, I'm not saying that you're homosexual, but you are standing nearer to my penis than any other man here. But you know, ladies and gentlemen, I stand like this, which is my sexy pose, and I say to her, would you like to have a massage? Knowing that most women like massage. And what I do, if I don't know a woman very well, I massage her back. And very discreetly, after 15 minutes, I let my thumb slip like that near the nipple area. I can show you where if you like. Where are you from? France, ça va? Don't be shy. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, don't be shy. What's your name? Benina. In my whole life, I have never kissed a French girl. First time. Excuse me. I've never made love to a French girl. All right.
The tourists are needed, the hecklers are needed, the speakers are needed. They all need each other to some extent for the spectacle. The hecklers themselves, of course, are the locals, and they often are condescending to the tourists or are disregarding of the tourists, except as an audience.
What a terrible state!
Wait, it's the easy way to believe that if I'll be Christian, I'll go to heaven.
But
I can do anything I want and I go to heaven.
It's the only way.
Yeah. And I've already heard this question before. What would happen?
Initially, when I went to Speaker's Corner, I thought the hecklers were specifically there to destroy what I was saying.
What a lie, what a fool, old man, you're coming to kill me. Hitler's out. You're happy with the Queen? Go lick the ass of the Queen.
I don't like your face. I don't like the way you talk. I don't like the way you do your hair.
And it looked like that because a lot of them were conservatives and so on, and I was left-wing.
Is that recycled paper? No, but I see. So you're not very environmentally friendly yourself.
But after a while, you begin to distinguish between different ones and different types of heckling, some of which is positive, some of which is negative.
They are not human beings. That's not the case. They cannot participate. They are human beings and they are worthy.
I actually learned a hell of a lot from him because I took all his jokes and turned them into part of my script, if you like, at Speaker's Corner.
He's a really good, loving God, isn't he?
He's so full of love, he's going to send his kids to hell.
There are a very, very positive facet of Speaker's Corner, although obviously there are some of them who are unbearable. I mean, sometimes you have to actually stop the meeting because someone will be basically going mad in your meeting.
Go shoot, you piece of shit! Anyway, can you go away for once?
No.
You've got nothing better to do with your life on a Sunday.
What have you had, Nicholas?
Sad state of the liberated Western man, but there you are. You know, my opinion of men plummets increasingly. You know, you never find a woman aged his age going on like he does. Women have got more sense. I'm standing for Allah.
I am Allah.
You are an idiot.
I'm Allah.
You are a devil.
Shut up. I'll give you a pork pie.
Okay, devil, give me a few minutes.
Come on then, Sorbet, sing this song. Come on, Sorbet. You got a bad headache or something? You won't find any oil down there. Stop muttering to yourself. You see that old Pakistani?
Being a real American man.
What we looking for, Sorbet? What we lost? Can't see any oil wells down there. It's a blade of grass, call the way you're looking at it, Sorbet.
We could see Speaker's Corner as a means for ordinary people. And of course that's very problematic. What do we mean by ordinary? But rather than say in the House of Commons or in university debates, balloon debates, where one debates positions, where you are very skillful, this is a place where you do get the type of Jerry Springer type of argument and argumentation.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't believe in evolution, but you're convincing me you're the missing link.
Listen, Edward, you think I've enjoyed evolving into this? Believe you me, it was a
My friend, let me tell you something. You could be what you want to be.
Okay,
You've chosen to be what you are.
And I'm very happy being what I am.
No, you're not. You are miserable.
What, because I haven't found the fucking Lord? Eh? Is that the root of my misery, is it? Well, let me die fucking miserable. Let me die the most miserable motherfucker on this planet.
Do you want to
Because
die?
if that is finding the Lord, I'm going to get a fucking anti-happiness pill, so I'm never happy.
In the mosque, then I'm
Why
not
do
in
you
the
keep
mosque.
bringing the mosque into your Christian stuff?
I've got to.
What's that got to do with it?
Just read the Bible.
It's got a lot to do with it.
Preach your Bible, we might learn something.
They could be the professional type of heckler who comes into the group, is known by the speaker, and there is a little tussle or engagement.
Is it correct to say, Heikki, that you're an ex-communist or still a member of the Communist Party, aren't you?
Nah, it's not correct to say that.
You would actually sold out the Labour Party, weren't you?
I have never been a member of the Communist Party.
You were a member of militant tendency, though, weren't you, Heikki?
I was a member of militant, yes.
They see you have your extreme views, didn't they, Heikki?
That's true.
You also worked as a job as a bus conductor in London Underground, didn't you?
That London Transport, that's correct.
And you also got sacked from that, didn't you?
I did not get sacked from that.
You shoot did.
I did not get the sack for it.
Yes, you did.
I got told off.
You were sacked.
Anyway, that's enough. You've had your time.
Come on.
In order to build an argument, you need a counter-argument. And in a way, the heckler, as well as the audience generally, giving the laughter, the applause, building up, attracting more audience, which is obviously a key aim, is to build up a large audience of attentive listeners. The heckler is doing more than that. The heckler is providing the fuel in order to make your argument stronger.
I wasn't separated.
You said it's
You
gone
were saying
downhill.
the police, which are white, are oppressing the black. People
My
in
friend,
it's not like anymore.
my
Most of them are
my
black
friend,
now.
who was keeping black people in the townships?
Listen,
Who?
We're talking about now.
We're talking about now. I'm talking about then, right there. That is why I sometimes refuse to debate with white South Africans. You don't know anything about our struggles. You don't know nothing about our pain.
You know about our struggles in South Africa.
Then keep your struggles to yourself.
No, but then mine, you don't know.
I'm concerned about you. South Africa is going to me yourself.
You get a tension or an aliveness with certain types of hecklers, which may actually, if we're not too cynical and just see this as a game, as one-upmanship, if it is about proving arguments, about people being passionate about their positions on contemporary topics, religious or cultural or whatever, then they need to have those counter-positions.
Now, there are those who argue that Speaker's Corner has its origin in the hangings that used to take place at Speaker's Corner. There was a tree here called Tyburn Tree where they used to hang criminals. Now, some people say that because people used to gather when they used to hang people at Speaker's Corner, and the person who was about to be hung had the right to stand up and make a last statement to the world in which he or she might be defiant and say, I have committed no wrong, they have committed wrong. And the plebs, the under-earths, the worms crawling out of the ground from the darkest recesses of London would cheer and applaud when the person was speaking. Now, some people say that this is directly connected to Speaker's Corner. I disagree. But some people argue this point.
In order to really understand something about Speaker's Corner today, we have to understand something about its history. This history goes back hundreds of years. Speaker's Corner is currently on the site of the most famous place of public execution in London, namely Tyburn Hanging Tree. The first recorded public execution at Tyburn was in 1196. But really it wasn't until the 17th and 18th century that Tyburn became a real social and political phenomenon. You'd find hundreds and thousands of people coming out onto the streets to watch a public execution. In fact, it was a day off for the masses of London. What would happen is that criminals would come to this platform to give their last dying speeches. The condemned would go onto the hanging platform and would be allowed some time to speak to the crowd. Now often this allowed the person to either say something about their innocence or maybe even to condemn the law or the legal system itself. Here we see an early version of platform speaking.
At precisely 8 o'clock, a horse-drawn cart containing a coffin pulls up to Newgate Prison, surrounded by armed constables. The first thing the prisoner sees when he steps out onto the cart are the hundreds of thousands of people lining the street to witness his execution. The cart rides slowly along Oxford Street towards Tyburn, stopping at alehouses for pints of lager along the way. The drinks are offered free, with jokes of paying for it later, which calms the nerves of the prisoner and adds to the carnival-like atmosphere. After some time, the cart reaches its final stop, the Tyburn hanging platform with its huge triangular gibbet. The executioner places a noose around the prisoner's neck. A deafening silence overtakes the crowd. The prisoner is offered a final chance to speak to the world. He appeals, debates, and regales the audience with his side of the story, and for the first time in his life, he is truly heard. After a brief prayer by the chaplain, the driver of the cart whips his horse forward, leaving the condemned to hang. The executioner shows pity by standing on the prisoner's shoulders from the crossbeam, and his relatives tug at his feet in order to speed his death. The crowd then erupts in chaos. Families and surgeons fight over the corpse. The mob engages in heated debate, protests and riots based on what they have seen and heard this day at Tyburn.
Brecht said in one of his poems, if you want to become a good actor, you have to go and study on the marketplace. But actually, I think Speaker's Corner is the best place because you've got such a variety of people that you can choose to impersonate or take things from. At Speaker's Corner, you have that whole breadth of humanity, the strangest, weirdest, and they're all part of that community.
Speaker's Corner is an open-air theatre. It has been called the largest open-air lunatic asylum in the world, and indeed there's an element of truth in that.
I have discovered the secret of eternal youth. That means I will not physically age or die. Now also I have discovered how to change my age. I can actually change, I can go back and forwards.
It's about my ears, it's about my listening. It's what I heard, man.
Now, as for Christian atheism, it's a belief in Jesus without a belief in God. It is what one might call a JC fan club, or the Jesus Christ Appreciation Society.
We're going to hell, and we're going to fucking party!
Now I discovered and worked out a way to pull my mind out of the standard framework into an alternative framework where the relationship between mind and body is such that the physical body doesn't age. So I have not aged since 1986, and I will never age or die.
The fact remains that the vast majority of speakers, and you know this, are bloody nutty. All those religious people over there, nutty. I am the only normal speaker here. Yes.
How can you ever equate white folks with the master race? I am your master. I'm superior. Look at me. Can you do this? When I was up there, I asked any question, and you did not ask a question. Why you want boy? Did you say master?
No, I didn't.
Why didn't you say master? Boy, listen, boy. Listen, boy. Boy, I said, boy, you're a boy. I said, shut up, boy. I am your master. No, this is not a free country. You are in my country. Yes, you are in my world. No white folks haven't got a country. Where you get it from? Where you get it from? Speak up, you bugger. I'm speaking up. Speak up. Where you get it from? Where you get your country from? Go back to your white man God. Go back to your white man God, I tell you. Go back to your white man God. Go back to your white man God. You are in our world. You are in our world. You must be aware of that. And we, us, the master race, we claim our world now.
You need to meet this living Savior that came from heaven. He became bankrupt that you might become rich. Woo! Glory to God. And I'm going to tell you another thing. This Jesus Christ that came from heaven, he loves all of humanity.
We went to the cowboy, and she doesn't really like the guy because he says he's really a Christian, but he's talking bad about all the other religions. So if you're really a Christian, I think you only talk about the good things about your own religion and not about the bad things of other religions. So he doesn't talk about his own religion, only talk bad things about the extreme and things about, for example, the Islam. I don't really like that point of view.
It's something that is popular, something that is entertaining, and also something that relates backwards to Greek times. You know, we had forums for democracy, great speeches, great discussions. That art, oratory and so on, has been almost lost in this world, whereas I think it will be rejuvenated because it's one of the great arts of humankind. I'm not saying I'm a great exponent of it. I enjoy doing what I do, but oratory and speaking about millions of different subjects is something that I think people will inevitably turn towards.
In the world today, a number of contradictory phenomena of the way in which we communicate with one another. Now, of course, the most elementary form of communication for someone who's capable of language is to talk. But this form of communication is not considered today to be such a high form of communication as the same form of communication was considered to be perhaps in ancient Greece, where oratory and discussion and debate were considered to be the highest forms of the arts. It's said by some people that television, radio, mass communication have undermined the art of oratory.
I began to learn a lot more from the people around at Speaker's Corner rather than just trying to preach to them, and then you begin to discover a way in which you can communicate with them, at the same time entertain them, at the same time provide some knowledge for people at different levels, people who are completely new at Speaker's Corner, or people who know hundreds of times more even about your subject than you know.
My mother was watching TV with my sister, and it was the 9 o'clock news. And there was a programme on the news about a man who had been molesting small boys. My mum turned round to my sister and said, "Look, Alison, I can cope with David being gay, but it would really destroy me if he turned out to be a child molester. In her mind, just as a vegetarian suddenly develops scurvy, rickets, anemia, and collapses on the street and dies of malnutrition, similarly, a homosexual, one moment they're happy with their partner, the next moment they're in public lavatories looking for sex, the next moment they're HIV positive, the next moment they're outside the school playground with a bag of Werther's Originals. As far as he was concerned, it was a logical progression. Fortunately, my sister had thought about these things a little bit more. And she was able to turn round to my mother and say, look, Mum, Michael, my big brother, is heterosexual. This does not make him a rapist. This does not mean that he is Ian Brady, the Moors murderer. Nor does it mean he's Fred West, raping and mutilating young women and burying them under the floorboards.
Because some speakers set up and nobody comes near.
Making plans, going to the bank and drawing your money out.
There often has to be a certain a manner in the speaker, a preparation, a display of engaged in preparing for the speech. So getting onto the ladder or moving the ladder, preparing the ladder. Much like with street performers, also have to do the same thing. When there's a street performance and the circus troops start to set up, people assemble.
Dun, 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 CNN.com. World breaking news. Where there's news, we're there. And that carries on for 24 hours a day. Well, yes, we're outside the White House now. We're outside the White House now. And President's going inside. And now we have to cut off from you now because we're going over to the Republicans. We're quickly sorry about that. Oh, Republican now. Hey, yeah, well, President Clinton, he's got his dick out, and we've been watching it, and we've been seeing recently. But don't you think that that's an irrelevant issue? No, this is an issue of lying and congressional constitutional rights of the American people. Now over to the news in Afghanistan. 24 hours a freaking day, 365 days a year, non-stop. And they repeat, because you're all idiots, they repeat the same story again and again and again and again and again, in case you forget it.
When you go back again and again and again, you find that it's not so creative a place as sometimes you think. There's a lot of routines, a lot of strategies being used, and again. So the one which you thought was funny, a great one line from a heckler, or a put down by a speaker, or a particular rhetorical point that seemed to be wonderful at that moment, you hear again being used in the same type of situation, or a slightly different situation, again, in the same format, and done with the same laughs and the same response from the audience. But you're no longer laughing and you're no longer impressed with that speaker, or that heckler, or that line.
The fact is, many of us put our energies in the wrong way, negatively. I'm going to give you some examples. There was one beautiful Swedish girl who emerged a few weeks ago as well. Initially, she was confronted with this Arab guy. He said, "Hello, baby. Hello, darling. Come on, baby. Believe in Allah." Then this Jesus guy saw what was going on. He said, "No, no, 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 no. Believe in Jesus." And then they had a fight. Do you think it was over their religious differences? I don't think so. It was over the girl. She didn't like that aggression. She moved away and emerged towards my direction. And I said, "Hey, baby, believe in me." And we had what can only be described as a delightful evening's entertainment. But I can assure you, hang on a moment, if God was up there looking down at us and he saw the selection of orators here and he saw that religious nutcase opposite me and he saw that religious nutcase opposite me and that religious nutcase opposite me and that religious nutcase opposite me, and then he saw Martin the sex speaker, who do you think? You. Hang on, no, be honest with yourselves. Who do you think he would like the most? Me? I'll tell you why. What I am doing is I am uniting people. I have not spoken about blacks and whites and who's better. I have not said that one creed is better than another. I am saying, hang on, I'm saying I enjoy my multicultural society. I want you to unite.
Here's the guy who worked in a printing factory in Leicester. I was working alongside a man in the warehouse department for the best part of 5 years. He was embezzling Crown property in that he was using company paperwork to claim petty cash. I'm the sort of bloke that likes... If people shit on me, I don't give a damn. If you take the piss, if you mock me like at Speaker's Corner, I don't care. You know, all sticks and stones, they don't bother me. But there's a part of me inside that if I'm trodden on just once too often, I go the whole way. And I put this guy in prison. I don't mess about when I want to take somebody out. Not fisticuffs. I want to ruin his life. I hope I did ruin his life because I took his job for a start, and I hope he never got a job again.
And it's a beautiful art. I mean, I love it. I live in England because of Speaker's Corner. Otherwise, I'd live somewhere else. I mean, that's the truth of the matter. Plenty more nice places than England to live in.
Speaker's Corner at least is a space where people of very different beliefs, backgrounds can potentially come into contact.
I came to Speaker's Corner first as a tourist, and I found something here that warmed my heart, and it's what brought me back. And what I saw was people having the courage to stand up and be counted for what they believed.
And for many people, it's the first time they've maybe heard some of these things being debated.
No one knows who you are. You can start talking, you can get engaged in conversation with people who you've never met before and who you'll never meet again. But people will stand there, heated discussions with people who they don't know, and it will go on for, some of them will go on for hours and hours and hours. Someone will establish relationships that will last forever in their life, or the rest of their lives, and some will just be temporary meetings and exchanges of ideas, but in a way that perhaps very rarely occurs in inverted commas, normal circumstances.
Sorry, I've got a different passport.
Different passport?
Yeah.
You have the signature? Show me.
I'll tell you. My passport is the Royal Kingdom of Heaven passport, stamped by the authority of King Jesus' government.
Show me.
Let's
You
have
think
it to
that
heaven.
because I do something, because I do something like kill someone, I need to go to jail. No, that's
Maybe
okay, that's
God's
fine.
Murder's wrong.
Murder's wrong, right? But then I don't believe in that I don't believe in Christianity and I believe in Judaism and we believe in different things. That's why I need to go to hell.
Excuse me.
I need to go to hell because I believe in different things.
Hold on. The reason why people go to hell is for one simple reason.
What?
They don't believe what God has said. They call God a liar.
What's God? Wait. Say Jesus, please, because I'm confused, okay?
That's the reason why you're going to hell.
God, that's the reason. Because I don't believe in Jesus, I go to hell.
Absolutely.
So it is a space where people could come into contact, and then you would have to deal with that contact. But in a society where you can never come into contact with people of different classes or ages or gender or sexualities, you can segregate yourself. And unfortunately, the internet is easily going that way. It can easily be argued that the internet is a space where you can form a group of like-minded people and talk to them for the rest of your life. You don't have to encounter other people.
What are your morals? What's right and wrong for you? What's good and evil? What determines for you right from wrong and good from evil? You tell me. Since it's not God, since it's not revelation, what is it? You call it democracy. He said it. I do. He said it, I do. You know what? There's a whole lot of Serbs who said the same thing. We decide what's right and wrong for us. There were a whole load of Nazis. They decided that it was a good thing and a right thing to incarcerate 6 million Jews, put them in concentration camps. They decided for themselves that was right.
You talk about 6 million Jews? Go ahead. Go ahead. And a Holocaust? What about slavery and the hell of a cost?
Go ahead.
They say some 100 million black people. These are conservative figures. Some 100 million black people were killed in the Middle Passage alone.
Right, bro.
On the journey from Africa to the New World.
Yes, sir.
Some 100 million.
Think about it.
But you want to cry for 6 million. Now, don't get me wrong.
That's right.
We feel the pain of the Jews.
Yes,
sir.
Not only do we feel the pain, we know the pain.
That's right. Black Germans died as well.
Hitler hated black people worse than he hated Jews.
That's right.
And you want to call us Hitler's children. Hypocrite. Hitler's children.
Liars.
You notice you couldn't find a black man to compare us to in an evil way?
That's
You
right.
had to find one of your
One of
own.
your own.
That's right. Hitler's children.
Speaker's Corner does change from time to time. I've spoken to people who have been police officers here or have been visiting here 10, 20 years ago, even longer in some cases, and it was very much a political place. Now you've actually got sort of quite a different range of people that come here to speak. You do have the religious element, you have the political element, you also have entertainers or people that just want to sort of get up and speak because they want to be in the limelight, for example. They just enjoy doing it. So you have got a wide range of people that come here for whatever reason they want to come and speak.
When there's a sort of rowdy gay rights protest, suddenly it's my fault. Suddenly people are saying, oh, I see your lot were storming into Canterbury Cathedral. Oh, I see your lot were stopping the street on Oxford Street. Now, I do not do the same thing with heterosexuals. You know, when I read about a woman being raped, I do not blame my father for it. I do not say, oh, Dad, your lot, aren't you disgusting? When I read about their recreational drugs and their 6 times a night bonking sessions, I do not say, oh, your lot, you have no shame. Oh, you wicked heterosexuals. Oh, you disgusting, degraded heterosexuals. I accept that in every group of people, you have your hedonists and your Puritans. You have your sex maniacs and you have your sexually reserved peoples. You have your monogamous and you have your polygamous. And yet, all homosexuals are seen as one great, big, sticky lump.
Well, listen, Caucasian people.
Hey, listen up.
We didn't call you niggers.
That's right. That's right.
We didn't lynch your fathers and your mothers.
That's right.
We didn't rape your women.
That's right.
We didn't depict you as animals in the films.
That's right.
We didn't deprive you of the simple, basic essentials of life.
That's right.
We didn't deprive you of education.
That's right.
We didn't miseducate your people. We didn't rob you of your history. We didn't rob you of your language, your culture, your religion, your God.
Go ahead.
We didn't do this, but you did this to us.
Yes, you did.
And now you want to label us racist. Hypocrite.
You can come here and say something that you don't feel that you're at ease to say in another environment because you're aware that you don't want to offend. But an awareness that you have a protection here.
We make sure that the peace is maintained because sometimes tempers can get a bit frayed and there are sort of groups that do tend to be at each other's throats a bit.
Don't fuck with me now.
Hey, can you be mentally?
Don't touch me.
This is
Oh, Simon, control your meeting before things get
And we're here just to make sure that the lid stays on the place, that anybody walking through can reasonably enjoy the place and they're not interfered with in any way, and certainly to make sure that there's no violence here as best as we can.
There is an ultimate sanction on the face of these set-apart regulations under which the police can tell you to move on. They don't do it normally, but for general public order purposes, the power is there.
Ladies and gentlemen, Speaker's Corner is now closed. Can you move away from this area, please? You're exceeding your authority. You're exceeding your authority. Speaker's Corner is now closed. Please move away from this area. You're exceeding your authority. You're exceeding your authority. Speaker's Corner is now closed. Please move away from this area, please.
Police are marvellous. They're very discreet in the way that they deal with the problems that can arise. So that is a great sense of your own security as well.
In theory, you could say that the tourists go there just for the spectacle. I think it's the symbolism of Speaker's Corner is what the most important thing is for them.
It's a symbol of British democracy in a way, a token symbol.
The fact that Speaker's Corner is such an important symbol worldwide, that it's ingrained in people's consciousness worldwide, indicates how very little we've achieved in this century in real democracy.
I can personally recommend that there's no place like it to be able to say what you feel in your heart.
The British need an icon that this is still the land of the old democracy, that there's still a freedom of speech here, that things are not like in America, they are not commercialized.
I think it's important to the vitality of a democracy to have public discourse and have public debate and have discussions about things.
Well, I used to come with my father, and he used to think it was important just to listen to people's point of view, hear what people had to say, and we were down from Cumbria, and I just thought my daughter should see this.
I think that there's more to life than the shopping centres on a Sunday. We should enjoy what's around us, yes. A bit of experience, a bit of cultural
This is the basis of all democracy here, isn't it? It's the fact that you can just say what you want to say.
It's important only in the sense that if it was suppressed, it would be an indication of a general suppression of other means of popular communication.
So what you have is a living, vital, regular enactment of one of the fundamental processes that have to do with human freedom, and people all over the world know that. They know that's what that corner is all about.
It's good to think, it's good to examine, it's good to talk, as the BT says.
I do think that the ability of people who don't have access to the mass media, who don't have the resources to hire large halls, who can't otherwise influence the political process, the ability for them at least to be able to come and say what they think is important.
What's essential is the fact that everyone understands the importance of protecting a speaker's corner, and that it's something that's been kind of woven into our understanding about what democracy is about, that all viewpoints are important to protect, that every individual has a right to express himself or herself, that no matter how difficult, or no matter how trivial, or no matter how odious the subject, that there should be a place where that speech is not just protected, but where it's valued.
Important freedoms that have to do with individuals are really fragile. Freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly. They're fragile because the large movements and imperatives of governments constantly cause them to try to encroach and get these little annoying gnat-like activities out of the way. So they have to be earned and fought every day.
Here we have many people who discuss and engage in discussion with one another, communicate ideas that spread across the meetings at Speaker's Corner, and between the meetings here and your everyday lives, and then back to the meetings here. Constantly reproducing the relationships with one another, but producing them on a higher level, involving the previous understanding and building a next level up to raise the consciousness and understanding, not only of ourselves at Speaker's Corner, but of the whole of the people of London. Not only of the people of London, but spreading across the world.
It's great, yeah, because it's a one-off in the sense that anybody can come up here with you don't need money or anything like that. Stand on a milk crate and say a piece about the world, you know. Put forward your ideas or, you know, anything.